What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at buffed mons that I think you should hold off on building right away. Throughout this video, I'll go through each Pokemon that I think you shouldn't waste your start on just yet, and then explain why with a current meta staple that does its job better and a current meta staple that destroys this Pokemon. So now that you're kind of familiar with the formatting of this video, without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting us off is Gogoat. Now Gogoat got access to a much needed coverage move in Rock Slide. It also received a Brick Break buff this season, but Rock Slide is still a better move to go for. As a mono grass type, Gogoat is weak to Bug, Fire, Flying, Ice, and Poison. It currently sims pretty decently against the main meta with a battle rating average of 507 and a whopping 25 wins to 26 losses. Now on paper, this seems pretty solid, so why is it ranked all the way down at 166? And that is because of the existence of these two mons on the right here. Credilli, unfortunately, just does Gogoat's job better. With its secondary rock typing, it neutralizes 3 of those weaknesses, fire, flying, and poison, and it also has a bulk advantage compared to Gogoat, and it can even artificially increase its bulk even further with Rock Tomb. Credilli also runs acid, so against one another, it has the advantage with super effective fast move pressure. Gogoat's main advantage is it actually functions like a true grass type with Vine Whip and Leaf Blade, whereas Credilli can sometimes struggle against some of the ground types, namely the Mud Slappers. But Gogoat unfortunately falls victim to the dominance, of course, of Shadow Scizor. Scizor, as a bug/steel, double resists both Vine Whip and Leaf Blade. And while Rock Slide is neutral, it's non-stab, and you get outpaced, which makes it a very poor matchup. If there's ever a meta where Rock is specifically banned, and that Grass plus Rock coverage is needed, maybe Gogoat can find its niche, but at the moment I think it falls just short. Next up, we have another grass type, and this time it's Dhelmise. So Dhelmise got access to a much needed bait move this season in Brutal Swing. This improves its pacing drastically, but I don't think it's going to be enough to truly shake the meta. Dhelmise's biggest issue is its stat product. It hits pretty hard, but it lacks the bulk and typing to be enough despite its solid moveset. Not to mention another Shadow Claw user that resists both ground and fighting has recently kind of taken GBL by storm, and that is Spidops. Spidops has the bulk that Dhelmise lacks. It also has coverage into its weaknesses with Rock Tomb, and it can lower the opponent's attack to artificially inflate its bulk with not just one, but both of its charge moves. Spidops outperforms Dhelmise in nearly every way except for probably closing power, so its niche is largely filled. Dhelmise also struggles against top meta mon. It has no actual typing weakness against, and that is Wigglytuff. Wiggly double resists Shadow Claw, single resist Brutal Swing, and has super effective coverage in Icy Wind, making a truly terrible matchup for the Dhelmise. At this point in time, it strikes me as an improvement, but not enough to make it stand out. The next Pokemon we're going to take a look at following Dhelmise is actually another ghost type, and that is Houndstone. So Houndstone got access to Play Rough this season, giving it coverage into one of its 2 weaknesses, Dark. Unfortunately for Houndstone, giving it coverage won't be enough to push it into the meta. Houndstone struggles in a couple areas. Its main issue is its fast move. Houndstone is stuck on Lick, which does some decent damage, but doesn't charge energy necessarily quickly. Add on to that 2 extensive charge moves in Shadow Ball and Play Rough, and your pacing is kind of abysmal. Shadow Ball also got buffed this season, leaving you no real reason to even run Play Rough on this Pokemon. And of course, there is a better meta alternative to this Pokemon, and that is Shadow Dusknoir. Dusknoir also has great fast move pressure with Astonish, but charges quicker to its charge moves, which also have more shield pressure. It also has super effective coverage into Dark types with Dynamic Punch, with a stab bait move on top of it. So while ghost types only have 2 weaknesses in Dark and other ghosts, they struggle massively against normal types, which double resist incoming ghost damage. Add on to that super effective fast move pressure with Sucker Punch, and Furret sends this Pokemon 6 feet underground. At least Dusknoir has super effective coverage into that matchup to potentially grab a shield, but Houndstone is virtually helpless. This is one that I don't even see getting any play in limited metas, and we'll probably have to wait for a better fast move and a better bait move too, to be completely honest. The next Pokemon we're going to take a look at is Kartana. Kartana got access to its 3rd 35 energy charge move this season in Sacred Sword. This gives Kartana unique coverage into Steel-type Pokemon that most other grass types can't hit for super effective damage, We've seen this type of coverage and pacing before on Pokemon like Lurantis. We've also seen its typing combination before on Pokemon like Ferrothorn. However, Kartana is an extreme glass cannon with a stat product in the 1300s, similar to Hisuian and Zoroark. Its only saving grace is its typing and incredible speed. This is a Pokemon that needs shields to perform well, and an energy advantage probably wouldn't hurt either. Those 35 energy charge moves will do some decent damage, but they are great charge moves, but they're not enough to one-shot the bulky Pokemon that rule GBL. And unfortunately for Kartana, there's another grass type that can hit the non-flying steels such as Bastiodon, Aegislash, Doublade, Steelix, Empoleon, Tinkaton, all for super effective damage. And his name is Toedscruel. Toedscruel also has a huge bulk advantage over Kartana, so it can outlast Kartana in most neutral matchups. One of Kartana's biggest matchup weaknesses is Gourgeist, a newly buffed Pokemon that walls Kartana and can delete it in just 2 Incinerates. If Kartana has a typing disadvantage in a matchup, it doesn't have the flexibility or the stats to make a stand. I do think it will have some play in maybe some limited formats or as a niche pick in Master League, but only time will tell. The next Pokemon we're going to take a look at is Dudunsparce, which got access to 2 new moves this season, a new fast move in Dragon Tail and a new charge move in Body Slam. While this does offer Dudunsparce its first stab coverage and a cheaper bait move, I don't think it's quite enough to move the needle. Dudunsparce in the rankings doesn't even opt for Dragon Tail over Rollout, and there's a couple reasons why. The obvious reason is that Dragon Tail pacing is just slightly slower. Generating a little less energy means it can't get to that second drill run after only 9 turns. The second reason is that Rollout hits ice types for super effective damage, and with huge buffs to ice this season, I think we can expect to see more ice and less dragon. So typing wise, a rock type fast move just makes more sense. With all that in mind, it also just gets outperformed by other normal type rollout users in Licky and its pre-evolution Dunsparce. Licky also received a buff this season, now with better pacing to that Shadow Ball. It also already has stab coverage in Body Slam, a better stat product, and has the option for Earthquake if it ever needs that ground coverage. Dudunsparce's top meta counter is of course the fighters, resisting rollout and hitting its neutral typing for super effective damage. It will also struggle against a Pokemon we just discussed in the last slide, Toedscruel, because it resists both rock and ground coverage. The only saving grace there is at least you finally have neutral coverage in that matchup. There is a couple limited formats later this season where dragons will shine, namely the EUIC meta, so do hold on to your Dudunsparces as a Dragon Tail moveset could help you on later this season. The next Pokemon we're going to take a look at is Lumineon, and Lumineon also got a 35 energy stab charge move this season, and that is Aqua Tail. Unfortunately for Lumineon, it has a couple things holding it back. First of all, its main issue is its fast move. While Water Gun does put on some decent fast move pressure, it generates energy too slowly to get to its charge moves when its charge moves have no real shield pressure. An Aqua Tail from a non-shadow decently bulky Pokemon doesn't threaten a one-hit KO and farm down situation against virtually anything. Lumineon does have an okay coverage move in the Silverwind, allowing you to hit grass and dark type Pokemon for super effective damage, but Silverwind also isn't a great non-stab charge move in itself. This Pokemon does actually have a decent stat product, so if these downsides were to change, it could become viable in the future. But at this current point in time, it's simply outclassed by other meta options in Azumarill. A Water Fairy that can also hit grass with Ice Beam and Dark with Play Rough for super effective damage and can put on decent fast move pressure with Bubble. It's also bulkier and has a better typing because it's half fairy, which means its harder hitting charge move is also stab. Another big issue for water gun users is that water is absolutely everywhere in this meta, which means your fast move is resisted in a large number of matchups. That isn't going to change this season because some of the ice types that got buffed this season are half water as well. Not to mention Ludicolo also got a buff this season, and Ludicolo as a water and grass type double resists both Water Gun and Aqua Tail. While it does take super effective damage from Silverwind, one Silverwind is not enough to knock out, which makes it a very dominant matchup for the Ludicolo. The next Pokemon we're going to take a look at is actually a pair of Pokemon, and that is Lunatone and Solrock. Both of these Pokemon got a buff this season with unique Weather Ball coverage into some of their weaknesses. As Psywave users, this means they finally have good pacing with a cheap charge move they can get to in only 9 turns. For Lunatone, Weather Ball Ice gives it coverage into grass and ground, which are two of its weaknesses. And for Solrock, Weather Ball Fire gives it coverage into its Grass and Steel weakness. While I do think they have some play in limited metas, simply being a Rock and Psychic type doesn't do them any favors. They have a whopping total of 7 weaknesses to only 5 resistances, and not quite the stat product to make up for it. There is, however, already a Psychic type with many of those same issues, but does have the stat product it needs to keep it afloat, and that is Claydol. Claydol has ground and rock coverage, which we've seen to success in Pokemon like Dunsparce. Rock Tomb also lowers the opponent's attack, artificially inflating Claydol's bulk even further. Claydol also saw a buff this season and has now dropped Ice Beam for Shadow Ball, a cheaper coverage move that isn't double resisted by the Ice Water types we're likely to see. And then, of course, the biggest issue for our satellite friends is Scizor. This Pokemon was absolutely everywhere last season and will continue to be everywhere this season with the buffs to Ice-type Pokemon. Every single one of its moves, Fast and Charge, hits these Pokemon for super effective damage. Maybe in metas where Psychic and Dark aren't direct typings and Scizor isn't allowed, these Pokemon could shine, but otherwise I think it's best to keep them on the bench for now. Another rock type that saw an unexpected buff this season is Tyranitar. Now, Tyranitar got access to reworked Dragon Breath, which means it charges to its charge moves even faster. Previously, or much faster, I should say, not even faster, because previously Tyranitar was stuck on Smackdown, which we know from Bastiodon is not quite the epitome of speed. However, with Dragon Breath and a 35 energy charge move, Tyranitar has straight 9-turn pacing to a stab coverage move. It also has a great stab nuke with Stone Edge on top of that for a truly incredible moveset. Tyranitar, though, does have a couple of issues. Like our last rock type, its typing is truly atrocious. It has 7 total weaknesses with a double weakness of fighting in the mix. Add on to the fact that it's a glass cannon in the Great League, and suddenly this Pokemon struggles into everything that it doesn't have a type advantage into. There is, however, another Pokemon that has very similar coverage with Dragon Breath and Brutal Swing, but a much better typing and even better pacing and coverage into its weakness, and that is Shadow Hydreigon. Shadow Hydreigon is also extremely glassy, but with Brutal Swing and Fly, it can hit for some massive damage, even in type negative matchups. Into Azumarill, where Bubble is resisted and they have to get to these play roughs, you have that neutral flies for good coverage, and you can just simply outpace the opponent. That it's really not all that bad of a matchup. And then you also have super effective flies into the fighting type that you are weak to. I think where Tyranitar will truly shine this season is the Mega Master League rotation later on. Oh, and of course, we can't forget to mention that it gets absolutely dusted by Scizor. So we've already talked about how prevalent Scizor is likely to be this season, and it's definitely going to be a problem for Dragon Breath Tyranitar. Last but not least is Lucario. So Lucario already had an incredible moveset with Force Palm, Aura Sphere, and Shadow Ball, but this season it got access to a fantastic steel coverage move in Meteor Mash. Not only that, but Meteor Mash sees a buff this season, so the pacing wouldn't be too bad either. Lucario also has an incredible typing, as the steel offsets 3 of the fighting type weaknesses in Flying, Psychic, and Fairy. It also has flexibility with its moveset, able to run any combination of either Force Palm or Bullet Punch, and Aura Sphere, Shadow Ball, or Meteor Mash. So with all of these great things about Lucario, why am I suggesting you save your Stardust before building one? Namely, its stat product. It has a stat product in the 1500s, which means even in type positive matchups, it can sometimes struggle to pull off convincing wins without committing shields. Add on to the fact there's already a newly buffed Pokemon that does Lucario's job but better, while also dominating the mirror matchup, and suddenly Lucario is outclassed. Doublade got access to both Shadow Claw and Sacred Sword this season, which means it has the exact same coverage option as Lucario. But in Doublade's advantage, it has a better typing, a better stat product, and better pacing. In my opinion, there's no real reason to run Lucario when Doublade exists. And then, of course, you have super hard answers in the meta, such as Shadow Talonflame, which can fully farm you down in the one-shield scenario. So I think Lucario is a fun Pokemon, but not quite in a spot where it can become meta. But that's going to be it for me from this video. I do want to say thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Mustache, Eliana, Perry G, Blue Nation, Peter Rushworth, Chompus Clips, Sons of Code, Selma Batil, and Immortal Bart, as well as an extra special thank you to the legend trainer members on this channel: Andrew Pitten, Musachu Speedster, Fasted Boss, City Slask, and Star Bonsai. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace!